Hello and welcome. Michael Coxon is the Mayor of the City of West Torrens and he's here. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Malcolm. I'm delighted to be with you.
Well, it's nice that you're here because we've been trying to get together for a very long time. This is the first opportunity you've had in your very busy schedule.
Well, all good things come to those who wait, and I hope I'll be good.
Oh, okay. Well, you're pretty good. Tell us how many people live in the City of West Torrens.
We've got about 63,000 residents from 110 countries around the world. So we are a very diverse and multicultural city, and it just all works.
So your shire is on the western side of Adelaide?
Yeah, so we're from the western border of the Adelaide CBD down to the sea, and right smack bang in the middle of our city, 22% of our city is actually the Adelaide Airport.
Yes, how interesting. You can easily fly away if you get bored.
And when you arrive in Adelaide, you're actually arriving in my city.
Oh, there you go. Yes. There's a claim to fame. I like that. So, Michael, you didn't really... Well, you did start your life in Australia, but your family didn't, did they?
No, my family emigrated here from Zimbabwe in 1961. My brother and sister were born in Zimbabwe, but due to the internal conflict in the country, my family sought refuge in Australia, and so you could say my family are refugees from Africa. And Mum was very heavily pregnant with me at the time, and so I tell people I was made in Africa but delivered in Australia.
Well, lucky you weren't delivered on the plane coming over, then you would have been delivered in the heavens.
Well, we actually arrived by boat.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it took 6 weeks, and my brother had a birthday on the boat,
goodness.
and it was quite an adventure. But Australia has been home, and my mum always said that because I was the one and only child that was actually delivered or born in Australia, that actually made her feel like she had her roots in Australia. And so since then, of course, our family has had a great life in Australia.
Did you come directly to South Australia when you arrived?
Arrived in Sydney. Well, no,
So
I'll
close
go back.
to Africa, Sydney.
Well, what happened is the boat actually stopped in Perth first, or in Fremantle, and then everybody said to my family, if you like Western Australia, wait till you get to New South Wales. So then I was born in Sydney, and then my family came here when I was 2 years of age to Adelaide.
Right. So what does it take as you go through life? What experiences does it take to become, first of all, a councillor, I guess, and then a mayor?
Well, I think you've got to have a desire to help people, because these jobs are actually all about service, and you want to, number one, be connected with your community, and secondly, be committed to serving their interests as well as you can. And so my professional life is, I was very fortunate. I got to go to university and get some qualifications, and in fact my first real job was in the Adelaide City Council, and so I had a clerical role there, so that's where I got my understanding about what local government is all about.
Yeah.
And then in 2006, I was driving my son to work, and we stopped at the traffic lights, and on the other side of the traffic lights was this big banner: get involved, help your community, become a councillor. And my son at the time, who was 18, he looked at me and he said, "Dad, you'd be good at helping the community. Why don't you go in the council elections?" So I thought, okay, I will. So I took the challenge, and fortunately I prevailed, and then I had 8 years as a councillor, and that's when I first met you.
Yes, correct.
Because you have your business in the city of
Well,
West
without
Torrens.
you making a point to the other councillors, I wouldn't still have the business in the city, quite frankly.
Well, and I'm really glad that actually happened, because I want to congratulate you on the civic award that you achieved from the City of West Torrens for your service.
Well,
to
that
our
was
local
very
community.
unexpected, and my gratitude specifically to you, because you found out what we've been doing.
Well, I think over the journey you've helped, and I want to acknowledge that for all the viewers. Over 60,000 young people have been through their theatre training.
Yes,
and
pretty amazing,
all of
isn't
that through Mighty Good Productions.
It's funny because 44 years, the time goes so fast. Oh, this is 45 this year actually, that we've been doing exactly that. We started as Johnny Young Talent School way back when that show was so popular on television. Then other schools joined. We instigated schools for adults and so on, and that's what end up being called Mighty Good Talent School, which is now operating out of the theatre, which is fantastic.
And of course, in our city, in West Torrens, we've got a very active community, but very active in areas of sport and recreation.
Yes.
And council puts a lot of funds into that area, and the arts is often a very neglected community.
I think it's a confused area for most people because they don't see the relevance in the arts. But you know, if we can't laugh, if we can't be taken on a journey somewhere else when we've had a bad day, you know, to go and see something at night, we watch TV or we go and see a live show, we listen to a band. Those things are so important to give us a quality of life.
Yeah.
Often forgotten.
And council's a lot like that. So council is a group of people that are elected to be the conduit between the operational issues of the council and the community. So we're there, and it's very clear in the Local Government Act that our responsibility is to improve the lives of our residents and ratepayers at a local level.
Well, that was probably my next question. How relevant is local government? Because there's been a lot of talk about, you know, cramping the government, the three levels of government together nationally. But clearly, if you don't have local knowledge and local understanding of what's happening, because every area is different. The housing is different, the facilities are different, the closeness to, say, the beach or the hills or mountains or somewhere like Sydney where you've got all that water right in the middle of everything.
Well, you're right. All communities are different and they all have specific needs. The most important thing about local government is that local government is responsible for the delivery of most services to the community.
Like picking up the rubbish bins and beyond.
Well, and there's more than that. So there's the
Of course.
parks and gardens. I mean, in West Torrens, we've got 700 kilometres of footpaths that we maintain. We've got about 420 kilometres of local roads that we maintain. We've got 34,000 street trees, and we're planting an extra 1,000
How do you remember those
trees.
statistics?
You know something? You just got to have a good memory.
Yes,
But
right.
we are planting an additional 1,000 street trees this year, which is the highest number that we've ever done in local government history. And this year we are celebrating our 170th anniversary in local government. So that's going to be a really exciting commemoration that we are going to have later this year. And so we've got a public library, we've got parks
Beautiful
and gardens. Of course, we've got our very vibrant arts community, arts and culture community. We've got sporting clubs. There's a lot of things that people, I guess, just take for granted, but it's a council behind it.
Yes, they do, because the nice thing about your particular council is because you are between the city and the sea.
Yeah.
And of course with the airport right in the middle. So almost everybody coming into Adelaide City has to come through, as we said, your council area. But also there's that great big avenue of trees that takes you from the airport through into the city. So it's quite a nice introduction to
Well, it's a
Adelaide.
gateway.
Yes.
And it's the boulevard up Sir Donald Bradman Drive,
yes.
from the airport to the city. And of course, you know, not everyone is fortunate enough to live in West Torrens, so they pass through there. But as I mentioned earlier, we've got about 63,000 residents, and they're all great people and all work together. And I'm tremendously proud of our community, but very honoured to serve them.
Well, so you started as a councillor because your son said you can serve.
Yep.
What made the change to go from sitting around there to sitting out the front there? What happened?
Well,
how does it happen?
That's a really interesting story. And I had a really great mentor.
John Trainer.
John Trainer.
Yes.
And John Trainer was the longest continuous serving mayor in the city's history, 18 and a half years. So I spent 8 years on council as a councillor, and then when John was coming to retire, he said to me, "Hey Michael, how would you like to be mayor?" And I said, "Look, I don't know, John, that's a lot of responsibility." And he said, "No, I think you'd be really good at it, Michael." So we discussed it, and fortunately I went into the mayoral race and I had 5 opponents and I prevailed. And it is it's a very unusual job because number one, you're a community leader, but also it's very important that you are able to connect with all of the members of your community, understand their needs and represent them.
Yeah.
And then of course you're trying to balance the needs all the time. And I've worked my way into the role. I love it, and I love serving the community.
Yes, but it's more than just serving the community, because you are a leader of a community, which means you've got to do all of those little things that people don't even realise you have to do with the right sort of aplomb. That's giving, for example, awards or going to community affair, opening events, doing all those things. It means you basically don't have a day off.
Well, that's the strange part about this job. There's no off switch. You're on, and you're on from the moment you wake up in the morning until when you go to bed at night, and then you check your phone before you go to bed and there'll be messages. But if I can just share this amount of this information.
Hang on, before you do,
Yep.
we've just got to take a short break, but we'll be back to share that information with Michael in just a moment. Our special guest is the Mayor of the West Torrens City Council. Michael, we're just about to say some wisdom and we had to go to a commercial break. You were about to say...
Well, I was going to mention, our city has got about 300 not-for-profit community organisations. And as I mentioned before, we've got a highly multicultural community. So we've got people from over 110 countries around the world.
Yes, amazing.
And it's an incredible honour to be a part of that. And so when we have community events and festivals, and we're known for our multicultural events in West Torrens, it is a great honour to be able to go and recognise the achievements of all the good work the volunteers are doing.
And that's the opening of the events, being there to do a quick meet and greet.
Yep.
Well, this photo that you brought in is really interesting because the gentleman in the centre here is the ex-governor of South Australia.
Yes, it's the Honourable Hugh Van Lay.
Yes.
The AC, the previous governor of South Australia, and I presented him with the highest civic honour.
This award here.
Yes.
He'd never received an award before.
Well, you can't see it in the photograph, but we had a little bit of a private conversation when I presented it to him, and he said, Mayor, as governor, and he was the governor for 7 years in South Australia, he was always presenting others with awards. However, he had never been presented with an award. And we did that because of the 300 community organisations that His Excellency was patron of. 80 of them were in the city of West Torrens. And so I was delighted to be able to present that award to His Excellency, and he very graciously accepted it.
Well, and quite, he was a wonderful governor, and actually just delightful that we had a governor who probably wasn't Caucasian, quite frankly.
And how great was that?
And how great was that? How great is this?
Well, and this is one of the achievements that I'm most proud of, and that is, as I mentioned earlier, my family came from Africa, and in May of last year I was presented with the Local Government Leader Award, Leader of the Year Award from the Africa Day organisation, and that was a tremendous honour to receive that.
I suppose even more so that Africa's in the title too.
Well, there you go. And
because if you were conceived in Africa, does that make you African, or does it mean because you were born in Australia?
Well,
do you have dual citizenship or anything?
Well, I don't, but my brother and my sister do, and so do my parents.
No, it is all about where you're born, I suppose, isn't it? Amazing. So we've talked before about the role of a mayor, or the role of somebody who's trying to move a community forward, but utilising the other platforms of power, if you like, in the country, which is obviously state parliament and federal parliament, by being a conduit, if you like, to communicate from your perspective or your needs of your community through to them. How difficult is it to get through to that level of government?
It's not It's challenging, but the most important thing to realise is, and I'll give you a number, our annual budget in the city of West Torrens is 70 million. Mm-hmm. Now about half of that, give or take, is for salaries and wages of our staff. So that leaves about $35 million left over. Now of that $35 million that it's left over, 25 million has to be dedicated to the work that we must do in the city.
To keep everything running.
And we've got a very vibrant community services division. We've got our depot and our maintenance staff that are responsible for all of the that sort of stuff.
It's a big staff.
Yeah, so we've got about 255 staff, and we've got plans for everything. So we've got plans for public health, we've got plans for the environment, we've got plans for the education of our community, we've got plans for community support and development, and we've got a plan for climate change as well. So the most important thing to realise is after we spent all that money, we've really got about $10 million left over to do those extra things. Now, it might sound like a lot of money, but it's not a lot when you have to build a new community centre and so on.
Yes,
so,
as you do actually, don't you? Because the new tunnel is going to mess up the one that you've got.
Yes, and so what we've got to do is we've got to have very good relationships with our state and federal counterparts, and because we need to be able to strongly lobby them for the financial support. Council will put in a share as well, but we try to work on a basis of dollar for dollar between the state and federal government and also council. So we go three ways, and that way when you put it all together, it's very, very worthwhile. And so this year we're about to start an $8 million redevelopment at the Thebby Theatre on Henley Beach Road. Now, we engaged in getting with the state government, and we got a $4 million grant from the state government, dollar for dollar basis. So council puts in 4, state government puts in 4, and we hope to have that finished in about 18 months. And that's going to really create a sense of arrival when people come to the very famous Thebby Theatre on the corner of South Road and Henley Beach Road, where many performers have been able to entertain people from right across the state.
And fortunately it's been saved because it's a unique heritage building, isn't it?
Yeah, and we were very fortunate once again about having good relationships with state and federal government to be able to negotiate so that through the majority of West Torrens we've got tunnels. We're going to have tunnels built to take the majority of the traffic. 80% of the traffic on South Road currently will be in tunnels eventually by 2031, and so the South Road, as we currently know, will only have 20% of that traffic load going down it, and so people
soon enough, really.
It will be absolutely fantastic, and I'm very grateful to the state government and the federal government for listening to our community and helping us so that we can continue not to divide our community with a huge overpass or a sky road through West Torrens, but to keep the majority of the traffic underground and keep it moving, and that's good for our city.
Sort of out of sight, out of mind, so that the community can continue to live as they used to, I guess.
That's right, and communities are like villages, and we need people to be able to feel comfortable in their homes, feel safe, know that the council and the government are looking after them, being able to care for the environment. Let's do what we can about climate change.
Is that the planting of trees? Is that
planting of the trees is part of it. Better building designs is also
Save
helpful.
On the power usage,
solar is another big part of that. So all of our community facilities have got solar power with the solar panels and batteries as a backup, and so. We're gradually changing all of our council fleet to electric vehicles. We know that the end game is probably not going to be electric vehicles as we sort of move into this period where we're investigating hydrogen as an alternative source of energy. So there's a lot of things that are happening in that area. We want to encourage sort of more water retention as well in homes and better use of that.
How do you keep all this in your head?
Well, Do you know something? It's like when you're in an interview and somebody's asking you, it's amazing how much information you can recall.
It's sitting there already.
Yeah.
Well, you took over from John, as we talked before. The handover, he was obviously working towards certain goals. Was it easy for you to pick those things up and continue them through? Because just recently I've talked to several of our Lord Mayors here from the City of Adelaide. And the thing that occurred to me was how difficult it must be when you've got to focus on something you really want to achieve and then you're not there anymore and somebody else has taken over. Obviously the infrastructure that's in place follows through, but is that difficult when something you really feel strongly enough about doesn't happen?
Well,
or council don't vote yes?
It takes time for things to happen. And so understanding that, back in 2006 when I became a councillor, when we initiated a lot of our upgrades throughout the city and the redevelopment projects, the $14 million redevelopment of Weagle Oval, the $16 million redevelopment of the Lockleys Oval, the $8 million redevelopment of the Camden Oval, and we've just completed Mellor Park upgrade, and then we're coming to the close to the end of the redevelopment of Apex Park, and of course the final stage of Breakout Creek. So there's so much that's going on, but those projects all had their beginnings back when I was a councillor. So I understood those projects.
Yep.
And now when we've opened those new redeveloped facilities, and I'll tell you what I think is a very interesting story about that shortly, I have invited ex-mayor or Mayor Emeritus John Traynor to those openings to recognise his leadership during those early stages.
Excellent.
Because I shouldn't just take the credit myself as the leader of the council, but I should share that with the mayor that was
because one
so
leader
helpful.
Really takes over from the other.
Yeah. So we had in 2019, we opened the redeveloped Weagle Oval. Now, I opened that on the 1st of December 2019. When I was going back through the council records, the original Weagle Oval was opened on the 1st of December 1919. So exactly 100 years to the day, we opened the redeveloped Weagle Oval.
Amazing.
But here's the interesting part. When we opened the redeveloped Weagle Oval, it was against the backdrop of a worldwide pandemic, COVID-19.
Yes.
When the original Weagle Oval was opened 100 years earlier to the day, it was opened against a worldwide pandemic of the Spanish flu. How's that for a coincidence?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, so many stories, and look, we'll be back in a tick to tell you a few more. Our guest is Mayor Coxon. Is that the correct way to... The Right Honourable? Do you get a Right Honourable?
No, I don't get a Right Honourable.
So will you ever be honourable?
Well, I introduce myself usually Michael Coxon, the Mayor of the City of West Torrens. That's it.
Was it something you always thought you wanted to achieve? Did you have this as like a goal?
I was happy to serve. I didn't really have the ambition to be the mayor of a city. I must be honest about that.
But you've got to have the right manner. You've got to have the ability to communicate really comfortably with people, to have all this information stored in your head that we've just talked about, to be able to control sometimes noisy councillors.
Well, believe it or not, the council meeting is about that much of the role and responsibility
I can understand
of a mayor.
Having attended a few, it's really interesting to watch democracy in progress, I suppose, is the best way to explain it. Did you find that an interesting process when you started?
It's not only interesting, but it can be enormously frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so we spoke earlier about Mayor Emeritus John Traynor, and John said, Michael, you need a lot of patience in this job. And that is something that I always remind people that councils move at their own pace.
Well, it's got to be a group decision at the end of the day.
Yes, it does.
And you might be passionate about something, but it doesn't make sense in the greater scheme of things, is the truth, isn't it?
And always remember, that if you go to a council and you ask for a horse, they're likely to deliver a camel.
That's an analogy I've never heard before. But just overseeing everything, congratulations on the job that you're doing. It's just lovely that we've been able to spend this time and that you've been able to take the time out, because I really do know how busy you are. So it's just a joy. And actually, having spoken, as I said, to a couple of Lord Mayors of Adelaide and other politicians, you're very, very approachable. And I can understand why people will feel very comfortable, you know, talking with you and understanding how it all works.
Well, Malcolm,
so thanks.
It's a great honour to be here. However, I do have one surprise for you.
Yes? It's a surprise.
I would like to give you an official tie
Oh, thank you.
of the City of West Torrens in recognition of the great work that you do for our city.
Thank you. And I'd love to give you this one that came out of a helping hand probably, but I can't take my microphone off. Michael, thank you so much.
No,
It's
but
been a real
please
pleasure.
accept that time.
Oh,
please
thank
wear
you.
it with pride.
Thank you. I will. I absolutely will. So thank you for joining us with this chat. It's been lovely talking with Michael. Good luck to you. We'll see you next time on Our Time.